straight into a fight. Run in there and go a million miles an hour.
It'll also give you some initiation that was sorely lacking for the Schalke team comp in the previous rotation. Perkz was hovering that Z. We just heard that clip from him. Assassins in the current meta just outscaled by the mages, which is why we're seeing primarily mages being played, and it'll be a Viktor steal away. So when the option or the blind pick is something you're looking into, the slightly safer Viktor.
Well, at this point, we've got almost identical pick and bans in the mirrored form, only the Gragas coming in instead of Elise. Ezreal Viktor was the second rotation. Obviously, with the Sivir unavailable, get that Ezreal. We spoke about the Caitlyn and how good that has been for Zven, so we'll see what he can do on the Ezreal. That was one of his most played champions as well, alongside Sivir.
Yeah, it really was. Great performances all around. Still not a guarantee that this Gragas is going jungle or top. There is, again, that option. We'll find out what they prefer to play. Only one game of Gragas for Trick, this split.
Oh, I want to see it.
The Swain, why do you want to see
like
Swain?
seeing... So as long as the fights go for Swain, I like having that other, tank style coming out here. It has been locked in. We'll see whether it's a bird-eating spider in this one. I guess not in the case that they're on the same side.
Chasing the rabbit a little bit with that one, I think.
Yeah, it got away from me.
But with the Swain locked in, Steve or Fox? I mean, I would expect it to be Fox.
I would say Fox at this point. Steve has the option to go Irelia if this is a Gragas, where you kind of concede a little bit of the lane, but the later the game goes, it actually tends out to be fine if it's Gragas in the top lane. So we're going to see from G2, in fact, where they're going to go. I anticipate this to be jungle Gragas, and then we'll see perhaps just the Irelia come out from Expect, and we'll see what Schalke want to go for themselves.
So there's a little bit more initiation here from Schalke. The Cocoon, the Never Move. It's still very situational, very difficult to pull off, I feel. Especially when you consider the mobility from the Gragas, the Ezreal, flashes, for example, being available for that Never Move. Ooh. And G2, they will lock in the Hecarim. Onslaught of shadows in your faces.
And I like it because it's still a double flex. You could put the Hecarim top lane. You could put the Hecarim in the jungle. Depends on what exactly comes out from Schalke. If they lock the Irelia, you can run Hecarim into it and it's okay. It used to be better before Hecarim's passive changed. Right now, though, Hecarim does fairly well into most melee matchups in the top lane. Gragas is fairly similar because you can punish anybody that tries to get on top of you. So G2 have a lot of options. Schalke may go Nah here if they want a ranged matchup specifically in the top lane and want somebody to be like secondary engage as well.
20 seconds to make that decision. I think the G2 composition has got a great number of options for both engage and disengage. With the Gragas, the Nami, Hecarim again makes it very difficult for Schalke to stick to any targets. 5 seconds left to rotate, and it's going to be a quick bait and switch to the Olaf top instead. So what do you make of this?
Olaf in the early game is going to have a pretty good damage output when you look at both of these laners in the melee, but at the same time, Steve, the later this game goes, is going to have to at least struggle a little bit in fights, trying to lock down an Ezreal, trying to lock down a Gragas, a Hecarim. Yeah. There's a whole lot of mobility and ways to get out of a fight for G2.
The contrary point, if either of these squads get ahead, they've got a lot of tools to just stay ahead by continually forcing fights. Sivir, Karma, Olaf, plus Ghost is terrifying. As long as Steve can keep running at you. Throw that Ragnarok down, throw out a few undertows. It's not hard CC, but good luck outrunning that.
Yeah, good luck with that. So we have Gragas in the top lane, Hecarim in the jungle, confirmed at this point. It's a kind of pick that Trick will be happy with. He can kind of farm fairly easily early on. Not really reliant on getting into lane early on. If he gets a little time here, can get to 6, run into a lane with Onslaught of Shadows.
Run into lane with Onslaught of Shadows. Has Ghost as a summoner spell as well. I'm very excited because I've not had the chance to cast Hecarim in a very long time. G2 Esports are 1 game up in this series. Hashtag G2 win if you think they're going to win. Schalke, on the other hand, they're looking for a point. They've gone down 0-2 to Fnatic and Splice. Will G2 do it as well? Jump on Twitter, vote for them if you think they can pick this up. Hashtag S04. That's 04. for typing in English. Unfortunately, guys, we build up all the hype and we do have very brief pause. So we will quickly talk a little bit more about this early game. Lane swap, yes or no? What do you think? Ezreal Nami as a lane matchup against Sivir Karma.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Gragas into Olaf.
I mean, you've always got to look at it. Like, Ezreal plus anything that can protect it that isn't an all-in lane is always very difficult to kill. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Schalke and G2 opt into the lane swap again. We saw Schalke have the slight advantage coming out of the lane swap, but it was at the cost of their TP, which ultimately we saw a couple of fights depended on those TP usages early on. So it was only a brief pause. You can see the lights are going. We're getting ready to go in, Trev.
We are indeed. It was just a quick client restart. And now that the engines are loaded, we're loading up onto the Rift. Schalke 04 trying to bounce back against the league-leading G2 Esports. And we've got some fun picks. Arcade Hecarim in the hands of Trick. I also think this is a slightly different kind of playstyle with this Hecarim, with this Gragas top. And it'll be interesting to see how G2 pull it off. How well practiced are they with their newer top lane? Not exactly brand new.
Sneaky. Ooh,
Look at that damage.
a lot of damage. That's one of the dangers of going up against Sivir Karma, is getting chunked out by a Mantrid Q and then eating a boomerang blade as well.
Yeah, that Soul Flare really, really hurts. Mithy gonna get 2 shots down onto the ward. Do a little dance, and then he's gonna back away. So lane swap looks like it's gonna be initiated by MrRalleZ. You can see he had already recalled.
But it's going to be evened up by the looks of it for Zven, so at this point, G2 can't get any vision topside here to actually know it's a lane swap happening. So at this point, they're kind of calling the bluff, but it will be the wards on topside. Hang on, there were ones placed by the top laners. I wonder whether they're going to time out just in time for Zven to show on it. Or a matter of seconds left on that ward, and Zven will show.
Walk straight over it, yeah.
Yeah, Schalke do know now.
All right, so what does Schalke decide to do? Maybe the cost of moving back bottoms too high, but then again, they've got a lot of damage in the early stages. I want to mention that Mithy is running with Ignite, Perkz, Flash, and Ghost. No exhaust on the side of G2 against a Swain and Olaf as well. So that could be problematic if Schalke have a strong early game. And if those 2 carries are able to run at G2. Alternatively, G2 have got that Gragas barrel in the tidal wave for potential disengage.
Oh, RalleZ just got chunked very hard. You can see it on his health indicator on the side. RalleZ took a cue from Zven and Mithy's extra damage. And it's G2 that are actually going to get the level 2 here. You can look at the minion wave in front. You can tell that with more minions remaining on the blue side, that experience is going to go over in their favor. Going to hit them level 2. You see it once again on the side indicators. That allows Zven and Mithy to very easily push back RalleZ and sprattel for now. And as you said, that Ignite going to be key as this goes on, because Mithy's going to have kill pressure on this bottom lane matchup, which is in the top lane, because it's Australia.
We're in Australia for the time being. Everything is upside down. We catch a quick glimpse. So G2 have the advantage in the duo from that very early trade in early level 2. Steve getting the undertows and the reckless swings down and expect. He's got a minor advantage, but the wave is pushing to expect, so they'll have some freedom to clear that up.
Talking about minor advantages, it's very funny for both these top laners. When I was looking into the stats, researching this matchup, Steve and Expect are both normally on average down CS at all of the major points in the game, that being 10, 20, and end. So I was like, oh, one of these is going to have to win. But oh man, this damage coming out down onto RalleZ once again from that level 2 advantage for Zven is really punishing the Schalke bot lane.
Yeah, MrRalleZ has got to be so careful. Still sitting on a cookie, relying on the shield from sprattel, has heal and exhaust as well. And for the time being, again, this is just a good early advantage for G2. Where is Trick? Level 3, full clear, about to finish on the bottom half of the map.
And this is one of the difficulties here, because although you can see the tether comes out, there's very little situation for sprattel that he can actually get this tether to lock because of how Zven always is going to be mobile in the lane. Mithy doesn't really want to be pushing too far forward to actually engage, so it becomes a very difficult matchup here when you're playing the Karma, trying to get the slows, trying to get the lockdown. It's very tough to get without Mithy pushing too far forward or Zven making a mistake.
That's not something that happens often at
No.
all, right?
If that's what you're banking on, good luck with that.
Exactly. All right, let's take a look at this mini-map. Gilius making his way down bottom. Expect has actually body slammed his way forward. Olaf and Elise, that could work in a tower dive, but there can be no room for error. Expect is running low on mana as well. Oh, there must be something happening up top. Miffy, Tidecaller's blessing into the Aqua Prison. Sprattel goes down to 150 hit points, and Expect, he sidesteps the cocoon, body slams away from the volatile Spiderling, and all of the potential shenanigans actually results in nothing.
Actually results in Trick being able to invade topside. There's nothing there for him to take, but there is the ability to put down wards. And now, at least gives a little bit of safety to that duo lane being pushed too far up. They knew exactly where Gilius was bottom side. No real threat.
Every time we look top, I think MrRalleZ and Sprattel might be goalkeepers. They're catching every single skill shot. And you can't afford to do that. They're down 13 CS already. There's going to need to be some help here for the Schalke duo. The one thing we do need to mention, that CS deficit is balanced out by the top lane because Steve is having a great laning phase against Expect.
And this is one of the things, as Olaf is going to have that in the early game here. Just Expect can't really punish it too heavily right now, and with Gilius being down in the bottom lane, that kind of gets evened out. I mean, Expect even used his teleport to get back to lane, so he's covered a little bit of the disparity between the two. But this bottom lane, top lane matchup for now is real tough for MrRalleZ and sprattel to get themselves back in. They're going to try and do Krugs. Problem is, as soon as they leave to try and do that, it takes so long. You can see sprattel, no, the wave's pushing in. It's a cannon wave. We can't really miss this one, but they get zoned off even then. This is real tough for this top lane.
Yeah, it really is. And going to go back to it. Last week, G2, they lost their first game against H2K. They were down massive amount of gold against Unicorns of Love and had to bounce back. And even in game one, it took 45 minutes for them to come back. Cocoon finds Zven. That is a lot of damage. Schalke couldn't follow it up.
But you could see, it's not that they couldn't follow up. That was not a gank attempt by Gilius. He knew there was vision control. He knew he'd been spotted off the pink wood. That was pressure release from Gilius, coming top to at least show and say, hey, look, you've got to respect this 2v2 or 2v3 scenario right now. I know there's nothing you can do to punish this. So that bought Schalke a little bit of time there, and has kind of now bought the time for G2 to recall as well. So they will be able to expand on that lead that they already had. But Gilius, even though the Cocoon landed, the damage on Zven, they just didn't follow up.
No, they didn't indeed. Fox throws down the Ravenous Flock, regens any of the poke that Perkz has put down. Plus 11 CS in the laning phase, so another strong early game here for Fox. He did the same on the Viktor into Ryze matchup, which I think is expected, to be fair. Regardless, helping out in the early game. Approaching 8 minutes on the clock, and we're going to take, again, another closer look at how the teams, which team has the advantage, because G2 have traditionally been ahead in the early game in most of their matches, and Schalke have traditionally secured the first tower regardless of the cost. It was a gank attempt last time.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what they give away, but at this
point,
point,
keep that stat high, man.
Stats all matter. About the stats. Stats win games. Some players do not agree with that. Also, I'm the same mindset.
The mid laners heavily agree with that one. That stats are less than decision making. I'll put it that way. They had some strong feelings when we were talking about in the round table. And there was a lot of saltiness around who had the higher KDA.
Always saltiness over there. But you can't tell the whole story from stats all the time. So as this game continues, we're seeing that lead on the AD carries grow. Perkz grabs himself a blue buff. Mid laners on the round table were talking about how much they love blue buff.
Oh, yes.
It was a pretty funny set of interactions.
The training in EU West solo queue, apparently. All right, so 9 minutes in. Gravity Field, not enough. Never Move, not enough. Both mid laners, really this is just a farm battle until somebody comes to play.
Oh yeah, and until somebody buys an Executioner's Calling is the other side of that, because at that point Fox is going to lose a lot of his potency in fights. Now I wonder whether Zven will translate his lead into a fairly early Executioner's Calling, because at that point you punish Schalke when they try and group, rather than trying to compound your lead identically against your opponent. So that might be something we see, but I wouldn't bet my house on it. very few things I would bet my house on, just saying.
Yeah, that kind of went from like 0 to 100, right? There was no middle steps. But we were looking at Steve pushing in Expect, growing that CS advantage again. It's been a rough day for Expect. His Irelia was really hurt from the lane swap. Now in the head-to-head matchup, he's struggling against Steve's Olaf. Again, I think the matchup has the potential to go badly. The true damage, the undertow, built-in sustain there for Olaf, I think can give Gragas troubles.
Well, I'm pretty sure he didn't account for some of the ways that these games have gone for it. I mean, he got starved of resources and then wasn't exactly sure what was coming out in the matchup when the Olaf was locked in. So the problem is, Gragas is going to have a much... I don't want to say larger impact, because Gragas can have a very large impact on team fights, setting them up, playing as the engage. Of course, Olaf can as well, with the right flank, get into a fight, but it's so much more difficult to have impact on Olaf than it is on Gragas. And Olaf's impact relies on him being able to get into a fight while ahead to really shut down a carry, whereas Expect can just throw out an ultimate and suddenly a team fight's won.
I think that's very fair, but I also think you can throw out that ultimate and also look very goofy.
Oh, yeah, of course.
If you miss it or you predict incorrectly, right?
I mean, it's a fat man wearing a Santa suit in the middle of summer. It's 35 degrees in here, Trevor. He's hardly dressed for the occasion.
Actually, as you can see in the bottom left, tickets are available. eu.lolesports.com.
That was the most random plug.
We have air conditioning in the studio, so you can escape the 35-degree heat, especially if you're in a Santa suit. Woo!
Our whole audience has turned to us with thumbs up at this point about being able to escape the heat. Yeah. Nevertheless, the heat is on for Trick right now.
Potential first blood. Cocoon finds Trick. He's in trouble. Onslaught of Shadows away. First ultimate is a defensive one, as Laser Bird pushes Perkz out of lane. This could be a Cloud Drake if Schalke wanted to.
That's
because
optimistic.
There's no cost. Yeah.
I mean, nobody's rushing for the Cloud Drake at all, ever. Not even for cloud cover on a hot day in the sun. Not even worth it.
Perkz was caught by the Never Move, but it didn't really do a whole lot. And we've just got extended laning phase. I mean, we're Season 2 again. 20 minutes of farming into a team fight. I apologize. I cursed Perkz.
Done it again? Whoa! Who needs assists right there? Gilius picks one up, gets the repel just in time.
And you see, that's why we like watching Gilius on Elise.
Yeah. It's been his best pick, really, when you look at it. Coming into this series, he had a pretty monster KDA on it, and Schalke are going to keep the streak alive, perhaps, Trev. Are they going to get it? Yeah.
Tower as well. So first tower again. What is that?
12 of 14.
Out of 14 games. And Gilius secures first blood.
Yeah.
Onto Perkz. So this is a good start for Schalke. It will cost them their top lane tower, though.
Once again, it's a tower. They get the first one. It still counts, but they do lose one straight after. Now, I wonder, in this scenario, if they can get MrRalleZ to farm up for a while, this disparity between Ezreal and Sivir may not actually be exacerbated too greatly. However, that does punish if you don't have your AD carry with them. They would much prefer Steve to be accepting that wave to expand his lead and end up in the 2v2. So for Schalke right now, punishing the Sivir a little bit more isn't actually the most impactful thing, because once you get into team fights, the Sivir's going to have her ultimate as utility, will be able to still deal damage there. It just isn't quite comparable to the Ezreal damage when you look at it from the lead that Zven has.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Schalke play this, because they've got a very strong top lane, very weak bot lane. There's some wiggle room for Fox, but it's taken a long time to get to this point. In terms of the slowest or the longest first bloods, G2 have actually been involved in 6 of those. 3 of those, rather, of the top 6. Whether that's securing or giving it up. So read that as you will. Low risk or low reward. Or in Gilius' case, just tower dive it in a turret. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, Perkz was so low, didn't have his ghost available. Didn't really anticipate the flash at that point to try and get himself out. Now Perkz has to be careful in the middle lane, has his flash, but Fox, if he can land a Never Move,
it's such a hard skill to land.
To use W doesn't really work too often.
Press R, press R. There we go. Both players pressed R. Mid lane weak in the European LCS, and they can't kill each other, I'm afraid.
No, that's not a whole lot of damage, especially when your Viktor has gone Mercury Treads.
Yeah.
Very early on, you almost never see it anyway, but once that added tenacity, you know, once the extra movement speed, the magic resist, get away, trick. He's got his ult, he's fine here in this scenario. So I'm going to say this, I'm going to promise you at some point there are going to be some real long, exciting team fights.
Oh,
it's not going to be right
That's
now.
a real brave call.
I'm just saying, at some point we're going to get him with a Hecarim, a Gragas, we've got an Olaf.
Don't know about
Sivir.
that, Cotton. We'll have to see how it works out.
Coming into this, I was looking at this maybe looking to be a bloody game at times, because out of the top 5 players of KDAs coming into this, we actually had 4 of the top 5 in this matchup. Here comes the engage.
And it may be thwarted. Teleports are being channeled. That's a cancel from Expect and a cancel from Steve, as Mythy was potentially caught out. So teleports down for the top laners, and Expect, still yet to complete any item, is now going up against a Black Cleaver Olaf. This is just going to get even more worrying over the next few minutes.
The thing is, Expect is sat on 1,500 gold right now. So while he knows he's not going to get punished because Gilius is in the lower side jungle, he does have to be a little careful in these trades, because as you talked about, Steve already has an advantage. Steve has about 1,000 on him, but it is still tough because Expect at some point is going to have an Olaf running in his face.
He will, but I think Steve will run straight past Expect.
Yep.
And try to take down Zven. Zven has built up a 50 CS advantage over MrRalleZ. The mana immune's been completed for a little while. It's 1,300 gold, as Zven continues to stack up that tier. Cull has still not yet popped for the max farm, and it's going to be whether or not MrRalleZ can bring the utility to Steve while not dying, because he's not got a whole lot of damage to offer just yet.
Oh, Trick didn't show on that ward, but thought twice. I believe they communicated that there was a ward top side, a pink ward. This game and this pace of the game is the result of having a Cloud Drake and neither team really wanting any kind of fights early. There's nothing that's forcing it. Cloud Drake isn't worth it. There's no point. You get 15 movement speed. They're saying, who cares? We got a Sivir, we got a Karma. I don't need that anyway. G2 are running 2 ghosts.
Lots of wave clear for Schalke, actually.
Yeah.
Laserbird, Boomerang, Karma as well to throw out that AoE.
G2 have got a lot on their own right.
Yeah.
Barrels, lasers, everything. Gilius walks past the dragon, doesn't even want it.
No, but Gilius, you know, I think he's one of the more interesting junglers to talk about, because there are such big disparities in his individual performances. And we're not seeing a stable level yet. Aqua Prison connects from Mythy before he takes a lot of damage himself. And True Shot Barrage used just to try clear out this wave. All right, looking down at this bottom lane, Steve is coming around.
Gilius.
Trick is looking to engage. Onslaught of Shadows. Gilius goes up with the Repel, trying to use as much time as he can. Tidal Wave has already been used. Here comes Steve. He's ghosting in. Teleport's coming down from Fox as well. Steve needs to land an Undertow. It does not connect. Picks up the axe. Finds 2. Mythy cannot move as Schalke grab their second kill.
Schalke are able to take advantage of the overlap in the bottom side. Perkz was still mid, did not have any impact on that fight, and Expect was up in the top lane. It was just a sheer numbers advantage in that fight for Schalke. They managed to take 1 kill, take a tower, and expand on their slight lead.
And we're starting to see again, G2 are the ones that initiated the play. Schalke can respond and punish. That happened multiple times in the first game of the series. In addition to that, Expect's teleport. He either opted not to TP down, or was late, and by the time he could, didn't. I'm looking at the minimap. There's no pressure from him.
Yeah. And
it was already in place.
At this point, Gilius has already been engaged on. You can see Swain trying to drop out of vision, and Perkz lets him go. Doesn't continue to chase there, because Perkz doesn't think anybody's dying here. It's probably even communicated by the rest of G2 that they don't want anybody to join that, because it would be using summoners for no ability. In fact, Perkz, as I said, doesn't have a TP, so only a gravity field would have been able to lock him down. So Perkz would have had to have run. There was no point in him going bottom lane. It would have taken him far too long.
All right, so Rift Herald picked up now by G2. The Eye of the Void, I believe it is called, was there picked up by Trick. So that's quite interesting. as he's going to be more capable as the game scales, I feel, than a Gragas to make use of the buff. And maybe it also tells you that Expect might be hanging out with his teammates just a little more frequently for that disengage.
It's going to help the first attack that comes in from Trick. When Trick runs into a fight with his abilities active, that extra movement speed, and hits somebody now with that extra buff from Rift Herald. He's even going Trinity Force. We rarely see Hecarim's finish Trinity Force. They'll pick up a Phage and leave it there for a while. It's kind of a vanity item that if you manage to get yourself there, it's like, hey, look at my damage. I die really quickly if I build a second item. So Trick playing a bit of a risky game, but he's going to look to use it top lane.
He is indeed. Steve throws down the Ghost and the Ragnarok, running for his life. Undertow will slow Expect. Trick continues to run. Onslaught of Shadows was used already. Devastating Charge should come up shortly. Steve is running for his life, and the crowd goes wild as Steve escapes.
Steve gets himself away. At that point, the horse isn't quite fast enough. Needs some velocity 9 in his system at that point. G2 want to engage again, but Trick, no ultimate. Here comes the counter engage.
Gilius found nobody with the cocoon, and G2 are able to disengage. Expect canceled his TP, so that's on cooldown.
So did Steve at that point. They were both looking to come in, both cancelled at the same time, so a lot of hands-off fights in this exchange. Only 2 kills so far, and they've gone to Schalke, who once again have had themselves a decent early game. They've been ahead on towers for a fairly long time right now, and they've been able to at least maintain a lead while being so far behind in their AD carry role. A lot of it is just coming from that added global gold that they've had and the top lane matchup.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty good matchup there in favor of Steve. Still plus 30. We're already seeing the impact that he's had. Fox was able to farm up a minor advantage over Perkz, 15 CS at this stage. It's about 2 waves. And I think we can accredit that to a very successful Gilius gank. That alleviated some additional pressure. As Cloud Drake is again the next dragon, not going to be the highest priority, but it is Schalke that once again have this lead. Now we need to compare their mid-game decision-making to game 1.
Yes. One decision that needs to be made at some point is that Executioner's Calling that we were talking about earlier. Spirit Visage is completed on Fox right now, but Gilius is the one that we are focusing on because he's forced to flash. Trick was around.
Trick coming up. The ultimate's on cooldown actually, so couldn't engage with it. But Mithy, my word, I think he's hit nearly every bubble that we've looked at on stream.
And speaking of Mithy, one thing we glossed over earlier, I was kind of tunnel visioning the Ignite on the duo lane. Of course, also deals with the Swain in the same kind of way, not just the Executioner's Calling, so I'm sure someone will have been like, no, that's the reason he's taking it. And I'm like, yeah, I was tunneling on duo lane. I'm sorry.
One of the few times that actually becomes really beneficial the later the game goes as well. That exhaust tends to be better in those late game team fights. Spirit Visage was picked up for Fox. No real surprises there. RalleZ for Gilius, taunting Perkz ever so slightly. And Fox is actually left to deal with Expect in the bottom lane, as both teams starting to group up around these mid towers. No real tower pressure this game. 23 minutes in, only 2 towers apiece.
Not even 2. Only 1 on the side of G2. I mean, you would be forgiven for expecting more. At this point in the game, you would expect a lot more to have happened. It's not really that G2 haven't been able to as such, but they've been trying to press this advantage with Zven, but the way that mid lane went, the way that top lane has gone for G2 has made it very difficult to actually expand on that lead reliably. And now you can look, TP's coming out behind here. Schalke, they're trying to get away.
They are indeed. MrRalleZ is running for his life. Trick was exhausted. Expect knocks RalleZ to safety, in fact, as Fox is on the front foot. He's looking to chase down G2.
Here comes
Fox
Perkz.
gets ignited. Here's Perkz from behind. First kill is on to Expect. Schalke have got the first of the fight. RalleZ is running for his life. Flashes away from the Chaos Storm. A devastating charge. Sends Sprattel to the fountain. But here comes Steve. Picks up the arrow, the axe rather. Looking for an undertow. Fox is running low on mana. Trick's looking for the kill. Trick is forced to run away as the laser bird burns him down. Never move on to Zven. Schalke have won the fight. fight convincingly. It's a 1-for-4, and Mythi's left wanting.
Don't be deceived by the low mana Swain. If you start hitting him, he's going to get some of that mana back and stay alive for a whole lot longer. And there are a few things in this fight that made it very difficult for G2 actually to get a lot of their damage down before the fight. And as we take another look at it shortly, we'll see some of them in effect. So Schalke are already in position here for the initial push, and Trick doesn't quite get his engage off properly. Look, Schalke noticed this, and it's only MrRalleZ that gets caught by Trick going in. Once again, we saw this kind of mistake earlier. Expect blast MrRalleZ backwards and actually gives him a moment of safety here. MrRalleZ doesn't get hit by the Nami wave. And look, Perkz does not have the upgraded Chaos Storm, so everybody from Schalke is able to avoid it apart from MrRalleZ at that point. He completed the perfect Hex core after this fight, and that is what allowed Schalke actually to turn this around. Trick tries to go aggressive because he thinks that Fox and Zven can kill this, but again, they have no way of cutting through the healing, and they give him the mana back. Fox is able to survive as well as Steve, and Schalke are able to take the end of this team fight convincingly.
Yeah, they really do. 4 kills for 1. They grab the inner turret bottom, they grab the Cloud Drake as well, and they now have a 4,000 gold lead. MrRalleZ, after all of the pain in the early game, he's still behind in total gold, but he's got a Phantom Dancer, he's got an Essence Reaver, and I think very importantly, he's got 2 solo lane champions who might be able to 2v5. Sprattel and Steve, they're running forward. Mythi's in trouble. Ragnarok lets Steve pick up some dinner. Looking for more. Undertow has to connect to slow somebody down. Sven's able to sidestep before he gets caught by the inner flame. Now Perkz is in trouble. Chaos Storm will buy him some time. Steve's not done. Keeps throwing out those undertows. Finds another. Reckless swing down. Needs to pick up the undertow again. Onslaught defensively as Trick runs for his life. This Hecarim is not having the impact G2 may have wanted.
No, it really isn't. G2 aren't able to get reliable starts to the fight. And now Schalke are looking perhaps to try and go for the Baron, but Expect pulls himself too close to the fight. MrRalleZ has red buff.
Yes, he does. Boomerang Blade will clear out the wave. I think Expect showing his face at least dissuaded Schalke from the Baron. And they grab themselves, again, another easy kill. And how on earth do you stop that, Olaf?
Well, you catch him without Ragnarok and then blast him away from the fight with Gragas, but that's easier said than done, as we're going to keep seeing here. So for the entirety of this, it doesn't matter what the Nami and the Ezreal has got, because now his ult was down in at that part of the fight. We were only taking a look at the Nami getting caught. So Trick has his Trinity Force complete, needs to get a little tankier if he wants to be the primary engage and stick around in fights. But speaking of not being tanky, Gilius is getting shredded down.
He is. There's no Onslaught of Shadows. Trick had to use it defensively. Gilius is going to be able to rappel up and get away. Again, another good bubble from Miffy that set that up.
And that's a Gilius that has himself Chain Vest, a bunch of giant spells in there as well. So while he's not the tankiest, still isn't full damage off that. So you can see just how much damage Zven is able to do for his team.
I mean, Zven, Blade of the Rune King, he's gone the traditional blue build. The Lucy Boots, Iceborne Gauntlet, as well as the Mirror Mana already.
It's probably why he hasn't got Execution Calling yet. It's yellow. You don't want to.
Yeah,
don't want to disrupt
the
the flow. But it's very interesting when you compare G2 from last split with this split. Zven actually brings like 6% more of his team's damage than Emperor did, which is actually a big difference on this. It means Perkz has dropped in team percent damage by 3, and the rest of the team have kind of conceded the other 3. So Zven is doing a monster job in fights.
And, you know, when you look at some of the team compositions with the Zillion, for example, where they do play around Zven.
Yeah.
I remember Deficio saying it multiple times in cast, when you have an ADC like Zven, why not play champions like Lulu or Zillion, keep him alive, and, you know, use him as the tip of the spear.
Oh, that's a Sivir ultimate being popped.
Yeah, but for what? Perkz is on the back line. Gilius is battling with Trick. Here comes Steve. He's running at a mile a minute. Perkz is in so much trouble. The reckless swing, as well as the undertows. Steve's taken down Perkz. Fox continues to interrupt and dissuade. That's a giant golden bird. True Shot Barrage will tag Fox, but not do a lot, as he's able to back away. And I think Gilius was able to buy enough time and distract G2 to allow Perkz to get taken down. Now Gilius is the target. Look for the explosive cast. Gives, in fact, already used. Expect goes down. Never Move locks him out. He's forced to flash away defensively and body slam to safety. A double bubble slows down Schalke. Defensive flashes from all of G2. Finally, Fox is running low on mana.
Oh.
Not before he takes down Trick. It's Gilius that gets the kill. And G2, they are scrambling.
He didn't even get RalleZ at the end of that fight. Still had flash and heal available despite that fight kicking off by RalleZ and Perkz going toe-to-toe. And Schalke are in such a good position compared to what we were expecting out of them. They've come with 2 strong early games, and in the second game are about to take themselves a Baron and a very strong lead against the league leaders.
This was a game that was going to determine whether or not G2 was one step above the middle of the table. Fnatic showed that they were last week. They had 2 convincing 2-0s. And today, G2, they're just a little all over the place. But I think you have to give credit. Schalke's lane swap in the previous game, and Steve on this Olaf this game.
Look at this. A Viktor gets his E and his ultimate off on an AD carry, and between the shields that come out and RalleZ having used the Phantom Dancer, gets that damage reduction as well. There was an exhaust that comes out. A lot of things meant that there was ultimately no damage coming from Perkz. And at that point, Schalke are just saying, well, okay, there's one of their damage dealers just completely gone. Let's just make sure Zven can't get into the fight and constantly go forward, keep moving in this fight. Fox is confident enough to just flash forward. He's getting enough back here when it comes to the mana that he can stick around for long enough. And RalleZ gets himself out easily in that fight. Look, touch and go, but here comes the push with the Baroned up minions here. They're pushing onto the tower, but it's not losing health quite yet.
9 kills to 1. Look at the damage from Fox. Ignite over exhaust. You have to start questioning maybe summoner spells. You know what? Screw it. Gragas and Hecarim, they're not working this game. Expect lost the lane, and his barrels have been invisible, really, because Schalke have played her in such a way that's not mattered.
And we saw exhaust Viktor last game to deal with an Aurelia. And while it didn't ultimately win Schalke the game, it certainly dealt with the Aurelia on multiple occasions. So, surprising that we're not seeing it again. Oh, Zven nearly caught out.
Oh, Fox,
Safe
he's
for now.
gone golden, gonna pop up onto the gravity field. I think maybe not enough follow-up there from G2. You could see both Expect and Perkz had peeled away to the top lane, but it will result in the tower going down. Onslaught of Shadows, it is available for Trick. He's waiting in the wings. Could come over the wall. Devastating charge is winding it up. He's at max speed before he's forced to back away.
Yeah, he decides he doesn't want it, though. He knows for him that's a one-way trip. There is no way he survives going into 5 people, and he's playing with fire, looking at it now. But G2, they're starting to catch up. Expect has Fox.
That was a good barrel from Expect. Trick's still holding onto that ultimate, uses it defensively to run away. Finally gets taken down. Fox is able to pick up a kill as MrRalleZ takes a second. The undertows Arcane shift away from, and Steve will have another shot. Not gonna find it though. Expect's in trouble and is run down by all of Schalke. 3 more kills.
3 more kills, and it's 3 kills closer to ending this game for Schalke right now. They've already cracked that tower. They've got Fox down on the bottom lane. They're looking to double in here right now against G2.
G2 Esports on the verge of losing their 3rd game of the split. They've had split series with H2K and Rockat. Schalke might just join that very elite crew. Not gonna go for the final push yet. Reset, spend all that money. Over 2,000 gold, in fact, for Fox and RalleZ. And this has just been a very good performance from Schalke overall.
It has, and G2 have struggled. They've really struggled to pick up kills in this game. Not only from the fact that they can't really kill Fox, but they've struggled even to lock down the likes of RalleZ, of sprattel in this game. You can see Steve go straight into the backline, forces Perkz out of the fight. This is the perfect position that Perkz wants his damage to come out when everybody's stacked. But from there, G2 just cannot afford to turn around. Just so much damage coming out right now.
Yeah, you can see like all the damage that Fox is putting down. As we've gone over 33 minutes, he's dealt 22,000 team damage to enemy champions. In contrast, Perkz 031 has only dealt 12,000. Around 40% of the total. He may as well have been invisible this game. The Victor's never had the opportunity.
I mean, just through the exhaust, through the lack of AP that he's got. Here we go.
This might be an attempt here from G2, but it's desperate. The tidal wave only buys time. Expect needs a perfect barrel. It knocks Steve forward, I believe. No, he's not even fired it yet. That was just Steve running forward. He gets shut down. Finally, Expect is killed. Sven follows shortly thereafter. Gilius looking for Mithy. Here comes the movement speed from Sprattel. Fox is running with the Ravenous flock up, and G2, they get at least one kill onto Steve, but Expect, he didn't even fire the ultimate.
Yeah, he couldn't get it out in time at this point. Schalke have to kind of be careful. They're still looking to close here, but there is enough wave clear coming out from G2, and they have enough damage that should they turn this back around, there is a possibility. But Schalke, they've got Fox. They're going to look to TP in on the super minion when it comes under the tower and keep it alive. It's when it has aggro. Here we go. Here comes the play. Gravity Field's down already.
Trick still has onslaughts of shadows, but it's up to Perkz and that death ray. Perkz is running. No Chaos Storm, no Sven. Nexus turret number 1 is down. Nexus turret number 2 is being focused. Schalke, they grab themselves a kill on the way. It's actually Gilius that goes down before they drop Perkz. Now they turn their attention to Trick. Sven is respawned. The Nexus is going down. A few more hits, and Schalke have done it. They even the series.